Believe we are live. Hello, and thank you for stopping by the Massachusetts Beer Reviews channel of YouTube. I am Thomas Metal 75 here for another whiskey review, and this is your Massachusetts Beer Reviews whiskey today. Hello, Mark A. Yes, we're doing a Canadian product here. Let me let the panel of people watching know that yes, we are live, and we are doing a Canadian whiskey. This is the Crown Royal. Let's get right to it, shall we? The Crown Royal Northern Harvest Rye, fine blended Canadian whiskey. This bad boy comes in at 45% alcohol by volume. Product of a product of the Crown Royal Distilling Company. They are out of the Gimli Distillery in Gimli, Manitoba, Canada. And this bad boy, the Crown Royal Northern Harvest Rye, debuted in 2015, and it is a, as they say on the back of the bottle, 90% rye whiskey. Crown Royal Northern Harvest Rye is a unique whiskey blend crafted from 90% rye mash whiskey. Our Canadian rye grain is planted in the fall, sprouting until it's covered by a blanket of soft winter snow. Once this snow melts, our rye completes its growth, maturing over the spring and summer. This distinctive growth cycle creates the perfect grain for a deliciously balanced whiskey, extraordinarily smooth, or this distinctive growth cycle creates the perfect grain for a deliciously balanced whiskey, extraordinarily smooth with hints of fruit, cloves, and spice. And this bottle, I believe, cost me right around $32 for American for the 750 milliliter bottle. And I just forgot that I even had this. I've had this for several months. I forgot it was even in the liquor cabinet. So why not? And I will be trying it neat in the Glencairn. And then I will be adding some spring water to the mix. And we'll see how that changes the flavor complexities, or if it opens anything up, or if there's any differences, you're going to know. So let's pour it into the Glencairn glass. And I mentioned it in the description on the video. Jim Murray, he writes a Whisky Bible, so your guide to whiskeys every single year. He thought in 2016, this was the Crown Royal Northern Harvest Rye was the best rye whiskey he tasted in 2016. So interesting stuff. And a lot of the Canadian whiskeys, they call them whiskey, they call them ryes. They got I believe they at least have 50% rye, if you're going to call them ryes in Canada. And it's just an interchangeable terminology. So this is I think this is the first rye whiskey that was put out by Crown Royal as a rye whiskey. So let's get an appearance on the Northern Harvest Rye, shall we? It's got a nice caramel, golden kind of a color. Yeah, golden caramel, light amber. It does have some legs. If I didn't mention, this is 45%. It does have some legs, as one would expect from a whiskey product. Yeah, what's a nice, pretty color. I don't know how long this whiskey is aged. I couldn't find that information on the internet. Let's get a nose on the Northern Harvest Rye. Typically, when I think of rye whiskeys, I'm thinking of eucalyptus, minty notes. You can get some black peppery kind of spice notes too. You can get, yeah, minty notes too. I'm getting some of that. I'm getting some of that herbal note. I'm definitely getting the eucalyptus, the mintiness to it. There is an oranginess to it. There's a fruit spice to it. There's vanillas. Very light on the barrel or on barrel char, any kind of barrel notes. Cinnamon, vanilla, light oak, the orange again, the mintiness in there. It's not a huge nose. I'm just trying to get past the alcohol. Yeah, definitely some baking spices in the background. And definitely that minty note's coming through, but it feels like a very light, it's very light aromas, but they are coming out and they're very detectable. They have very distinctive notes that remind me of a rye whiskey or a high rye mash bill bourbon in the United States. So if you like the smell of a, I don't know, something like a bullet maybe, without the huge rye punch, you probably would like the nose. And this is a very nice, pleasant, delicate nose. So let's take a sip of the Northern Harvest Rye from Crown Royal. Cheers, Solange. The mintiness and this herbal quality comes up right up front, I should say, mixed with a vanilla and a baking spice, cinnamon, maybe not cinnamon sugar. No, it's not super sweet. But there's a cinnamon, vanilla, baking spice, definitely that mintiness. There's definitely an orangey citrus note to this whiskey here so far. The Caskers, KASKERS.com, says the whiskey is unusually fruity for a rye with an aroma, apple pie, cereal, mild spices. I'll agree with that. The aromas give way to an extraordinarily smooth flavor profile, more apple, custard, and caramel, with the typical rye spiciness, while the typical rye spiciness picks up. And I'm noticing that towards the end of the finish. It's not a very long finish, I would say. It's a medium finish. It's probably done about there. And I'm getting some of the rye spiciness. You can get spicy notes too out of rye. And I'm getting a little bit of a black peppercorn towards the end of the sip. I can see the caramels. I can see the apple notes too. Now that kind of plays in my mind now. I can see the apples. I am still getting a little bit of a citrusy orangey. I think that cinnamon thing that I was detecting is somebody else's caramel sweetness. So that's perfectly acceptable in the style or in the tasting notes there. So this is a really good whiskey. I like this so far. It's very delicate. There's not huge, like in your face, brash, bold flavors. But what's there is really nice so far. I can see the caramel and an apple, like an apple crisp or tartlet kind of light flavor. I'm gonna put a little. Hopefully, I don't go overboard. I'm gonna put a little bit of water in the whiskey and see if that changes the complexion or adds anything to the whiskey. Just a little bit. No science there, and how much that I just put in. All right, let's see, shall we? Let's get the water integrated. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it, but when you add water to whiskey, you'll be able to see the separation of the water inside of the alcohol. Not at this point. Now let's get a nose on the Crown Royal Northern Harvest Rye with the water added. So to me, I'm getting much more of that black peppercorn spiciness from the winter wheat rye. From the, yeah, from that winter wheat, definitely. What else am I getting there? So the peppercorn picks up a little bit more. Cheers to my man there, East Coast. More of the caramel notes are coming out immediately. I think some of the vanilla fell to the background, but it's right up there too. Caramel came out. More of the appley notes. Possibly the citrusy fruit kind of fell down a little bit. Yeah, it definitely has way more of the sweeter upfront notes that sometimes bourbons have with it. with that rye spiciness and some of the herbal notes and minty notes, but those are now subdued. I detected more of the minty herbal notes without the water addition. So let's try it now with the water addition, the Crown Royal Northern Harvest Rye. Cheers, everybody. Oh, so way more of the minty eucalyptus notes are popping out of the whiskey at this point with the addition of the water. The rye is the big star of the show. The finish is still there with some of that black pepper spice, but it's a little more integrated towards the beginning of the sip. Within the beginning of the sip, it's integrated. Definitely more of those caramel notes and vanillas. Definitely more apple forward and less of that citrus note forward. So it's following the nose once I put the water in there. I mean, there's probably a lot more exciting whiskeys. Sip of water. There's probably a lot more exciting whiskeys and rye whiskeys coming out of Canada. I'd like to try the Lot 40 rye whiskey at some point. We get that in the United States. I forget what the ABV content on that one is. And they make a Lot 40, is it called cask strength, which I don't think you're ever going to see that in the United States. And then there is the Alberta Premium, which is a, I forget, it's got to be up towards the 60 ABV range, and that's supposed to be one of the best whiskeys of like all time or something. So if I ever want to spend north of $70 on a whiskey, maybe one day I'll try that. But that I don't even like to spend over $50, and let alone even close to 60. But that would be that's typically the max would be around the $60 range. But let me think about ratings here, and then give you an overall score. So what did I think about the whiskey when it was neat? I thought it was it wasn't hot, heat hot wise. I thought that the black peppercorn spice really punched through at the end of the sip. So if you really like your spicy rye notes, drink this thing straight. With the addition of the water, I thought the flavors melded together a little bit more. They're a little bit more cohesive. They're a little easier notes to pick up. More of the baking spice and the desserty flavors of caramel and creme brulee, maybe creme brulee, and like an apple tart, apple pie kind of come through more with water. I can see that. So if you're used, to me at least, if you're used to more traditional bourbon, sweeter notes, you probably would like this whiskey, and you probably would like it with a little bit of water. Ice typically does a similar thing for me on this one. But yeah, so cheers, yummy. What's up, brother? Cheers, Craft Brews R. Cheers, Leprechaun TV. And oh no, it's Dio. Yes, it's Dio. So I will give this. You know what? I'll give this an overall score. I'll give this at least an 87. Why not out of 100 for $32 for a bottle of this? I'm not complaining to try that. I thought that was a very good price point. This is probably one of the better Canadian whiskeys that normally you will be able to find on a shelf. I would hope normally you can find this on a shelf. I don't have a great knowledge of Canadian whiskeys nor rye whiskeys from Canada, so I don't really have anything to judge this on now, but it's fairly easygoing, it's fairly inoffensive, and it's easy to pick up the flavors. And I think if you're a bourbon drinker looking to get into Canadian whiskeys or just rye whiskey in general, this would be a great place to start, in my opinion. So, yeah, cheers. 87 out of 100. I am not disappointed with my drinking choice or the dram in the glass tonight. So, hey, Mark A, cheers. I'm going to say until next time, keep tasting those great whiskeys. Cheers. We'll see you soon. I'm going to go off air. There's the link if you want to join me in an off air conversation. Cheers.